Oh, we're so back, aren't we? Hull City 3-2 winners over Oxford United. They've won a home game, their first home game of the season. And what drama! Oli McBurnie, 93rd minute, bang, the winning goal. And if you were here, what a moment! You know, football's about moments. We say it all the time. We said it at Hillsborough when Charlie scored that winning goal. That sort of memory is what it's all about. And today, it looked for much of the second half like City would be frustrated, that they would, in reality, drop 2 points against a fairly average Oxford United side. But alas, McBurnie popped up from Ryan Giles's cross and they win the game 3-2. But that doesn't really tell you the story of what was, particularly in the first half, a scintillating game of football. Second half was a lot calmer, although City dominated. And as I say, it looked for much of it in that second half like City would be frustrated, that they'd have to settle for a 2-2 draw, having led twice in the first half. But yeah, McBurnie, that's what he's been brought in to do, and he scored twice in the last two games. And you know, the best part of 20,000 have gone home happy. And I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think most of the people that were here today would have enjoyed what they saw. City just looked like a normal football team. They looked like a team of a few years ago when football was. I tell you, I'll come to that in a minute on the celebrations for the winning goal. Football has become such a sanitised game of everybody wanting to be Pep Guardiola, and that's to take nothing away from what he's achieved and what other managers trying to copy and develop that style have done. But at times, football's become really sanitised and boring, and you know, there are so many teams that have to play 1,000 passes before they can get out their own 6-yard box. What's refreshing about Hull City under Jakirovic is they just look like a normal team of years ago that want to get it. They play with pace. They want to get it forward, get crosses in the box, and score goals. And it's kind of refreshing. And I know we obviously lost on penalties at Wrexham and then conceded twice. Just had some kind of mental breakdown in that final 70 seconds. But I can't remember if I said this at Wrexham on Tuesday night. Apologies if I did. But I remember sitting there like 89 minutes before the chaos ensued and looking at Gilo, and they were knocking it around, you know, kind of down in front of me where we were in the press box, kind of the opposite end to where the City fans were, the left side of the pitch. And I just thought they look a good team. They look a really organised, well-drilled team. Yeah, I know they conceded twice after that, and I think today everybody, this will be the first time a lot of City fans have actually seen a Jakirovic team play in the flesh. And yeah, there's a lot to admire. Yes, the 2 goals they conceded were bad, and that made him really angry. And I get it, because they scored 2 really good goals. They should have had quite a few more, and they allowed Oxford back into the game. And Oxford were on course for a point they didn't really deserve overall in the game. You know, they will say, well, look, we scored twice away from home. We were resolute second half. They went to a back 3 at times, a back 5. Tightened up in midfield, and they were much more organised in the second half. But their only real threat came from Will Vaulks' throw, and it was chaos every time he lobbed the ball into the box. City, funny thing being, most times like Egan or Hughes would win the first header, but it was from the second phase where they couldn't defend, and both goals were really poor. Both goals, the first one from Lancashire and the second one from Cam Brannigan, really good strikes, great volleys from them, to be fair, but so avoidable from City just not marking players and not getting out to block shots and things. But look, let's wind it back. Who was that made the comment about the EFL? Because that made me chuckle. Matthew, yeah. When I've finished here, I'm going back to Preston to carry on camping outside EFL HQ until we get an answer. But let's wind it back to the start of the game. So McBurnie and Gowhart in from the start. City, the crowd were whipped up by Benthouse from the club's media team, impersonating Steve Jordan, who is back from next weekend against Blackburn. So he whipped up the crowd really well, to be fair to him. How he didn't either blow a gasket or rupture a spleen, I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, and then I think it was officially given to Gowhart after 2 minutes, but the feeling is it was after 16 seconds. But Gowhart, pinging down the left hand, took the ball from McBurnie, you know, going left and right, went on the outside and fired it in at the near post, and kind of, as I say, within 2 minutes, and that was real blue touch paper, well and truly lit. And it should have been 2-0 shortly after. A really good move again down the opposite side, this time with Ndala pulling back across goal, and Matt Crooks running in, and there was a fantastic block there. But Crooks really should have scored to make it 2-0. And then the problem is they didn't. As I say, that length, the Volks throw, maybe Pandor should have come. Kind of Drame got caught at the back post under the header. I don't know if Pandor, maybe, I haven't seen a replay, but maybe Pandor that close to his back post should have come and got a glove on it, flicked it away or something. Then they don't get out to block Lancashire's volley. It's a really good goal. But they recover well, go up the other end, and another really good move. And this time Gauhart lays in Crooks, and Crooks slides in the goal, and it's a really good goal. 2-1. And again, they're flying. The crowd are up, and there were a couple of throws came in the box, and they dealt with him relatively well. You said, right, okay, we're going to calm it down a bit. That was after 20 minutes. And then another one comes in. They don't get out to close down Cam Brannigan, who's a very, very good player at this level. Very good player. And then this volley is in 26 minutes. And for me, Pandor gets down to it, but gets a hand on it and can't keep it out. And I kind of think he should do better. There were a couple of times last season where Pandor was quite slow to get down to shots in his corners. He gets down and gets a hand to it. Maybe he sees it late. As I say, I've not seen a replay. This is just in real time, but it looked like he went down slow. But he wasn't. In fairness to the goalkeeper, he wasn't helped out by those in front of him. It was another poor goal, and they changed shape at half. City tweaked midfield a little bit because they were struggling to break at times to break through midfield when kind of Oxford changed their shape, because they're obviously in the low block. Oxford went, they took off the striker at half time, brought on a defender. That did make a difference, but City still created moments. There was a Gauhart. Was it Gauhart? I think it was Gauhart had a rocket of an effort that Jamie Cumming beat it away. There were a couple of nearly moments. Akintola came off the bench for his debut and looked lively. Kamara came. He's obviously looks like he's close to a move to Getafe. But he came off the bench, and the gaffer swapped sides. Got those two swapping sides, and the winning goal came from a nice ball around the corner from Kamara. Gilo, who was brilliant going forward all afternoon, gets into the box, doesn't panic. He pulls it back from McBurnie, who pulled off his marker. And so often in that situation, you'd see strikers, because in that context in the game, they'd rush their shot, they'd slice it wide or hit it into a defender or straight at the goalkeeper, because there was a lot of players in and around that 6-yard box. But McBurnie, so experienced, of course, takes his time, pauses, and then puts it in the bottom corner. And even after that, there were Oxford then try and get something out of the game. There was still a lot of time to go. Jakurovic got booked because somebody on the bench threw a ball on the pitch to try and slow it down, and there was balls bobbling around the penalty. It was just absolute. It was the championship, basically. It was just, that's the way to sum it up. It was mental. So yeah, I mean, just again, they've won the game, and look, they should have won the game. They were much the better team. The fact they left it late, the manager would be like, we should have had it sewn up before that. But it's the first home game of the season. We're still only a week into the new campaign, so there are going to be teething problems. There's going to be a bit of fatigue knocking around, and a lack of sharpness here and there. But I thought generally, that was a dominant performance. They've had 70% of the possession throughout the game. They've had 19 attempts on goal. Unbelievably, I think they've had 37 touches in the in the Oxford United penalty box, which, if you watch City last season, they struggled to get into double figures of touches in an opposition penalty area. So, and for those that give a monkeys about XG, it was well over 1. So again, that's positive. I just look, there is things to work on. I thought they missed Shemi Ajayi today. I'm not sure both those, and that's taken nothing away from Charlie or from Eags, but I just feel Ajayi is such a commanding presence in the air that perhaps those 2 goals don't happen if Shemi Ajayi is there. And he's going to be, obviously, with his hamstring injury, 4 to 6 weeks out. Hopefully, the bulk of that is during the international break. But part of me does think if Ajayi's in that back 4 today, perhaps those two goals don't happen. But that's hypotheticals. We'll never really know. I guess the only slight concern was the fact that Indala went off, but I don't with a shoulder. But I don't. Let's hope it's not too serious. But because I thought he was again electric today, and again, I interviewed Gary Rowett after the game, and he talked about City's wingers, how they get the ball out quickly to the wingers, and you know that is obviously a real part to their play. And you've got Liam Miller's not too far away. The great news is that Mo Balumi could be back on Saturday. He could be back in the squad on Saturday. You know, suddenly that bench is looking a lot stronger. You could bring off Akintola. You could bring off Kamara. He's got Brandon Williams, who's obviously now signed for the football club, on the bench. Carl Joseph is on there. You add, you know, Mohamed Balloumi. You're gonna have to be patient with him. Of course, he's been out for 9 months. We need to be really careful with him. But the fact he's back is absolutely brilliant. Lee, in terms of Cody, look, it's a mess. For those that don't know, Cody Dramé. It was funny, wasn't it? He gave away a really sloppy. If memory serves, he gave away a really sloppy corner, and you're like, oh, here we go. They're a threat from set plays. Ball comes in, he wins the first header. Shot comes in, it smacks him straight in the forehead, and he goes down. Doesn't have any treatment, but then the referee he has to then go off for, well, in theory, 30 seconds before he can come back on. It's more like a minute. But he didn't have any treatment, so I don't understand why. It's a good question. I don't know why he went off. There seems to be some confusion from referees as to why players have got to about players going off for 30 seconds. You know, the rule was brought in basically to stop players. You know, in that, the prime example is when City have scored the third goal. Oxford are pushing. Charlie Hughes goes down. Nothing wrong with him, but goes down to try and, you know, take momentum out of a Coventry. I keep saying Coventry, Oxford attack, and we know why. It's gamesmanship. It's the dark arts. But Charlie was hurt. But in terms of Cody, I just don't understand. It didn't make any sense. And like Charlie obviously had to go off, and he was off for a period of time when City were having to defend. It needs clarification, because neither player. If a player's not having treatment on the field, and they, like with Cody, yeah, I get concussion protocols and all that, but Cody's just not had treatment. He's just got up and gone on. But I don't know. I genuinely have no idea. Matthew, who do you think would be the first manager to be sacked in the Championship? Unfortunately for Ruben, if this carries on, it will be Ruben. I wonder if he'll be in charge of that lot when they get here early October. But yeah, so look, things to improve, but just look. Last season was an absolute horror show here, wasn't it? How many times did I sit in the car park after a Tuesday night game or a Saturday game going, they've lost again. Game they should never have lost, but they've lost again. Well, they've won a home game, and it's the first home game they've won it, and they've done it. There's that bit of drama which we love. Obviously, you know, Joffrey getting off the mark, Crooks getting a goal, and also McBurnie again. Just everybody feels that, given everything that's happened over the summer, most people have written City off. But it's really refreshing. They've started the season 4 points from 6. They've won a football game, you know, and they've won a game at home. And I think just everybody will be feeling so much better about it. And that little bit of momentum that feels like it's building, despite everything that's gone on over the summer. You know, Jurkovic has been able to build a really, really competitive football team. The club have backed him with some very, very good Championship signings in Lundstrom, in McBurnie, of course, in getting Gauhart back. You know, they've made some very good signings for a club operate that can't buy anybody. And look, they just look a damn good side. And we're only 2 games in, but I think take the positives and just enjoy the fact that Hull City have won a football match at the MKM Stadium, because it was so infrequent. I know last season they won 2 before Christmas. You know, they beat Cardiff, and then it was desperate after that until obviously they beat Swansea just before Christmas in Ruben's first game. So this is a mental football club, but under this manager anything's possible. And they do, as I say, they just look a decent side, and they've got players coming back. They will add 1 or 2 more. There's a defensive midfielder's close, so hopefully that gets over the line. No names just yet, but hopefully they can get that over the line. I still expect Kamara to go to Getafe, so that'll free up space in the squad, because at the minute it looks like it's 1 in, 1 out. I think there's going to be interest throughout that. You know, it could be a mad next couple of weeks, because there's interest in obviously the good players, Hughes and Panda as well, but particularly Hughes. You know, you look at Coventry. I don't think Coventry are going to go away. They might sell Bobby Thomas to Sheffield United, so that they needed the centre half before that. So they've got a bit of money in their pocket. Do they try and push to get Hughes? You know, and teams also panic before we get to the, you know, when you get into the final days of the window, teams start to panic, and then suddenly, you know, if you're looking at Charlie Hughes, you don't want to sell him, of course, but you have to be realistic. If somebody comes in with 14, 15 million pounds for Charlie Hughes, do you say, maybe we have to have a conversation, because that's big money. The problem you've got is that City can't go and spend at the minute because of the shambolic situation with the appeal. They can't, you know, if they got, let's say they got 14 million pounds for Charlie Hughes and 6 million pounds for Ivo Pandor, they can't go out and buy replacements. They can't reinvest, so they'd have to be scratching around for a loan signing or a freebie, and that's not going to be easy to replace, particularly Hughes, but also to get a goalkeeper of Pandor standard on a loan or a freebie. So, you know, it's going to be a fascinating next couple of weeks. In terms of the appeal, look, I think everybody's fed up with it. It's now getting on for 10 days. We still don't know. The club don't know. It's in the hands. I think the EFL would like to get it resolved, but it's in the hands of the independent panel, who have not made their decision yet. I'm not convinced that that it's been made and the EFL are just sitting on it and trying to delay City, but you know, as close to the window closing as possible. I'm not sure that's the case. You know, we thought we'd find out last week. That didn't happen. We would like to think we'd find out this week. I mean, it's crackers that we're 10 days on and we're only 2 weeks from the window. It's 2 weeks on Monday at 7 o'clock. The window closes and we still don't know. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So, but yeah, like I say, just so pleased for the gaffer and the players, because the players are clearly enjoying what they're doing. And I think if you've got that ingredient in your team, you've got hard workers. David Fergus. Fergie, I said the other day, Fergie's doing the Lord's work, and I'm not sure contacting Donald Trump on social media is going to expedite the process anyway, but you know, whatever. But yeah, look, they feel in a good place. When you've got a manager that knows what he's doing, that can get the best out of players, that plays players in their right positions, that gives players confidence, that, you know, if you're going to be successful in the Championship, you need to be organised, you need to be fit, strong, and they've got that in abundance. You've got the likes of Crooks, McBurnie, Lundstrom, Egan. They've got good players. You've got Louis Coyle to come back as well. Obviously, Giles is flying. Drame had another good get, although I think he could have done better with that first goal. But you know, they've got good players. Gauhart getting off the mark with a really good goal. Could have had another one. Teeing up Crooks. You know, they're really good. The squad's in a good place. You just hope that they stay fit. You know, McBurnie's not played much over the summer. Obviously, he's come back with 70 odd minutes. Well, he ended up having 30 odd minutes at Coventry with added time. He played 70 odd minutes at Wrexham. He's had 90 plus 10 today, so 100 minutes today. You just hope that, you know, he's not going to get, you know, burnout or God forbid something like a hamstring goes or something. You know, that would be a real kick in the knackers if somebody like him or Gauhart or Lundstrom picked up an injury. But that's football. You can't. It is what it is. But you know, look, to sum it up, I think fantastic to win today and to find a way to win the game, and that's going to be so crucial this season, is finding a way to win the game. There's going to be, this Championship is probably as competitive as ever. I don't think there's going to be a team that runs away with it like we've seen with teams recently in the last few years. It's going to be so competitive, and this team will win. You know, you'd like to think, based on what we're seeing and what we've seen through pre-season, you know, they're going to win football matches. And just touching back, I want to touch back onto pre-season actually, because I know everybody writes it off and it's not important. It's what happens in pre-season is of no relevance. Results don't matter. Blah blah blah. I genuinely I agree with that, but I think for this football club, winning some games, 5 games in pre-season, was absolutely pivotal, because it lifted the mood, it lifted the atmosphere, it gave supporters optimism. It proved they could win football matches again. And I remember speaking to Gilo at Stockport after the win at Stockport. You know, didn't play great. It's a friendly, but they found, you know, Bairstow scored the winning goal in the second late on, didn't he? And Giles was like, look, we need to create a winning culture, whatever the game is, whether it's tiddlywinks, football, friendly, competitive, it doesn't matter. We need to create a culture of winning football matches, and that is so important. And the fact they've got it, great point to Coventry. You look at Coventry scoring 5 at Derby yesterday, shows what a good side Coventry are. So I just think you can't underestimate that pre-season for me, and it was so important. And on the flip side, last season's pre-season, last summer under Volta, it was a mess. They couldn't win a game, and that became a narrative. Players weren't happy. The football club was not great. Fast forward 12 months, yes, you've got the situation with the finances and the embargo and all that sort of stuff, but the football side of it, the manager's created an environment that the players are happy with. They're enjoying themselves. They feel like they can perform. And George, yeah, Giles, he does. Giles looks like Giles of Middlesbrough 2 seasons ago. Yes, he's going to make mistakes defending. We have to accept that. Players do it. That's why they're playing in the Championship. Let's not forget that. But Giles is going forward. He's back to his best. He's bombing forward. He's putting belting crosses in. He's creating. Again, the winning goal. He could have easily just thought, I'm going to play the percentage and fire it in and hope it gets a nick off somebody and goes in the back of the net. But he didn't. He didn't panic. He had the presence of mind, Gilo, to pull it back for Oli to do what he did. That Giles last season. Giles is probably not on the pitch. But if Giles is on the pitch, he's probably not that far forward. If for some unknown reason he's got that far forward, it's not. I don't think he has the confidence. Or him and Kamara don't combine in that little passage of play, and he doesn't run on and pull it back from McBurnie. That winning goal last season doesn't happen for me, because Ryan Giles is on loan at Middlesbrough, but he just doesn't. It just doesn't happen. So those combinations like that, the left hand side, first off, they were brilliant. Him and Joel and Darla were absolutely brilliant. Oxford couldn't deal with it. And just think, when you've got Miller coming back, you've got Balumi coming back, they're going to have such strength in depth. Akintola looked bright when he came on. Bit dubious about that, but about what he can deliver, what fitness he's at, and coming on into a Championship game. But I thought he looked really, really encouraging, actually. And they've got options, and that's something that, again, this time last season they didn't have. You turn into the bench, and with respect, you're looking at children, that have never played a game. And today you're looking at, well, we've got Kamara on the bench, we've got Carl Joseph, we've got players on the bench who could come on and make a difference. Even Akintola, new signing, gives everybody a lift. And so look, I just think, there are things to work on. Obviously, no team in the world has got nothing to work on. But I just think that there's so much to be positive about that team, and I just hope that whatever happens between now and 7 o'clock on the 1st of September, that group of players is still fit and still together. I mean, as I say, there's a lots that could happen between now and then. So much of it we don't even know yet. We can speculate on this, that, and the other, but we just don't know what is going to happen in terms of bids coming in for players. City, the owner looking at it and thinking maybe £15 million right now is going to help us. It's going to help us. I don't know, but there is a huge amount of positivity. I don't. Who was it that asked about? You mentioned Jurkovic in his media. Yeah, I agree with Matthew. Palmer and Nadal link up was absolutely brilliant. So I'm just trying to scroll through some comments, so it's not just me rabbiting on and talking absolute garbage. Matthew, yeah, you mentioned about the media. Jurkovic, I look. I love him. As a journalist that has to work with the football club all day, every day, it makes my life a darn sight easier when the manager is willing, he's engaging. You can have a laugh and a joke with him, and I'm also conscious that there's going to be points in the season when it's not all sunshine and roses, and it's dark and it's wet, and we're all miserable because you've lost 1-0 at home to a crap team that you should never have lost to, and we're all a bit miserable. But he's very personable. We have a laugh and a joke, and I think that you want to create a rapport. I've got a job to do, he's got a job to do. But what I do think is the fans buy into that. I think the fans see how he is in interviews and see how he is on the touchline, and hear players talking about him and about his style. And I think that rubs off on the supporters, and then you get the atmosphere like you get today. And it creates that relationship. And I think that was one of the big criticisms that I had of Tim Volta this time last year. I never felt like And generally, I always, people think some people think I had an extra grind with Tim. That isn't true. I didn't think, I felt from early on that it was never going to work. I'd never felt that he was the right man for the job. I also felt that he was shafted by his recruitment. Yes, they signed some very good players, but he started the season with two hands tied. So I don't think everything was his fault, but I never felt that it was going to work. But I also don't think he built a rapport. He made any effort to build a rapport with the supporters. And so when things, or the media, and I think that is important. I think having a relationship with the local media is important. I think it can buy you. There's a theory in the game that having a relationship with the local media can buy you extra time if things start to go pear-shaped. And it's our job to relay what he says to you, the supporters, ultimately. But he was very cold generally, and when things started to turn here, because he'd never taken any time to talk to the supporters, and get supporters and take the supporters with him on the journey. When it did go belly up, they weren't asked. They were like, okay, your team's not very good. Your football's rubbish. We're not winning games. And to be honest, I don't feel like you care. This guy is on the flip side of it. You can tell that he's buying into it, and the supporters are already behind him. And yes, perhaps the situation off the field, the supporters have kind of want to give him more support, perhaps because they know how difficult it is. He can't go out and buy anybody. Perhaps that plays into it. But because of his personality, supporters are buying into it, and performances like that, and even what we saw at Wrexham. I know that they lost on penalties, but that can happen, and what happened at the end. But I just think the fans really want to. The fans here are dying to get behind a manager, and obviously there was never really a massive rapport with Grant. There was with fans. They liked Shotter, but knew he wasn't a very good football manager. Obviously loved Liam to pieces, but there was always that undercurrent with Liam of the style of play of games like today. Perhaps he's taking Carl Joseph off rather than putting Carl Joseph on. Sorry, he's probably bringing McBurnie on. I'll get it right one day. He's probably bringing McBurnie off and putting Carl Joseph on, rather than like we saw with Jurkovic, keeping McBurnie on even though he's blowing, and chucking on another striker, bringing on another winger to try and win the game, instead of going, right, we've got 2-2, let's not lose the game, and if the goal, we'll keep playing and probing, if the goal comes, it comes. He's gone out there and his tactics have won the game today. So I think, again, supporters buy into that. That was terribly explained, so I apologise. But I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. I've rabbited on now for far too long. On that bombshell, I'm going to head home. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks for all your questions. We'll have the 1904 Club will be back as normal tomorrow morning, so Monday morning. And all being well, we will have a special guest for you to listen to, who was here today. So I won't mention who it is, largely because if something happens and he can't, it changes, then I don't want to let you down. So, but all being well, we'll have a city legend, frankly, an absolute legend of this football club on the 1904 Club tomorrow, and then we'll obviously be building up towards the game against Blackburn Rovers here at 12:30 next Saturday. If there is any news on the appeal, we will of course bring it to you, but as yet there is nothing. In terms of outgoings, as I say, Kamara is the one we expect. Hitafe want him, but again, until it's done, it's not done. And credit to Abu, I thought, he doesn't know what's happening with his future. It looks like he's going, but he's come off the bench this afternoon, and he's had a positive impact on the game. The winning goal, and also a massive clearance, after the winning goal. So credit to Abu Kamara, because he gets a lot of stick, but I thought that was a really, really good cameo performance, particularly with everything that's going on around his future. So that's it. If there's any news on arrivals, we will of course bring that to you as well. So that's it from here at the MKM Stadium. Hull City 3, Oxford United 2. Only outside the playoffs on goal difference. Up those times.